So, who's the best player in the league now? I mean, I know nothing has happened and no one has won the finals, but with this finals run, does that put Jokic as the best? Are we still looking at Giannis as the best, even though he's underperformed twice? Are we looking at Steph as the best? And that's what I want to talk about today. That question of who is the best and run down through the options. You know, I believe that conversation moves every year. And there's always going to be some normal opinions, some good opinions, some bad opinions. And maybe if we just run down through all of them, we could see that there's maybe one guy who gets it, because that changes through season, through who wins the championship, through who wins the MVP. Let's see. So let's run down a few of the unlikely older players first, because I'm trying to save the younger guys for later. First, Kevin Durant. In my opinion, in terms of skill, I think he is still number one. I think he's the best player in the NBA. Him and Kyrie are definitely the most skilled duo that we've ever seen. But being the best basketball player doesn't necessarily mean you're the best basketball achiever, right? If you're not getting any accolades, like he didn't even get All NBA or All Star this year, if I'm not mistaken. And honestly, Kevin Durant this year just had like a down year, because he got traded to Phoenix, and because he got injured, so he didn't play very many games. But so Kevin Durant, if you want to make the argument that he's the best player in the world, then I 100% agree with you. I think that it's going to be hard to argue that. He could pass. He's probably the most skilled offensive player that we have to offer, right? But when it comes to accolade-wise, which matters obviously in this conversation, I believe that Kevin Durant is way too far behind, right? He didn't get any votes this year. Well, I mean, he got votes, but he didn't get an All-NBA nod. He didn't get an All-Star nod. And honestly, he hasn't gotten any major award since he won a championship in 2018. So it's not Kevin Durant. I believe we can come to that conclusion when it comes to the factors which I just said. Then we have a guy like LeBron, which is very interesting. Is LeBron the best player in the league? And honestly, the answer to that is I think no. He's old. He just got swept. And the fact that he's still doing the things that he does are awesome, but let's face it, he's not the best player anymore. Before we used to call him that because we knew that even though he wasn't winning, he was the best player because his team wasn't overly stacked like the Warriors. And that when he did have a good team under good circumstances, he would win the championship, right? So we saw that with 2016, 13, 12, and 20, where he won the championship, and the years that he didn't win are either that he lost fair and square or that they stacked the odds against him just to make him lose. But I believe that at this age, LeBron's one of the best players in the league, but he's not the best. It's obvious that his body got a mile on him. His defense is not that good. And when we're talking about players, who are so good offensively that at least you could hide them on the other end, or players who do enough for your team, I believe that LeBron's second motor, right, like the third and the fourth quarter, I believe that severely lacks, and that we've seen that go down extremely in these playoffs. Then we have a few guys who are just... So yeah, to move on and make this quicker, and run down some names quickly, I feel like Luka, he just missed the playoffs, but I feel like as an individual player, when it comes to talent and what he's doing, I believe that he probably has the best argument, right? Like him or Jokic, because they're just so good at everything. And Luka's such a versatile scorer and playmaker. I just believe that the defense is not there. And then we have really where it becomes elite, right? And where it becomes supreme. And it's four names, right? And it's Jason Tatum, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Nikola, Jokic, and Joel Embiid. Now, of course, there's a bottom tier to this. Oh, and Stephen Curry. I'm sorry. There's a bottom tier to this, and then there's a higher tier. The bottom tier is Jason Tatum and Joel Embiid. You know, Jason Tatum and Joel Embiid are both awesome players, and they're in the top, and there's an argument there. You know, they both play defense and offense. They're both great with the basketball, and they're both the best player on good teams. But the deal with Tatum and Jokic is that they haven't won anything. And in terms of winning, I mean that yes, Tatum has made the finals and the conference finals multiple times. And no, I don't mean Jokic, I mean Embiid. I'm sorry. And with Embiid, yes, he's won an MVP. But I just believe that all of this, but they have to win something, right? Like Embiid won the MVP, and that's cool, but he can't make it out of the second round, and he's consistently worse in the playoffs. And let's face it, there's some people who are just like that. There's not everyone is going to be LeBron James, not everyone is going to be Michael Jordan, not everyone is going to be one of these great playoff performers. And we have to face it that these guys are just maybe not made for the moment, right? Like Tatum has his moments, but Tatum has had a lot of chances to shine. Like he's had a lot of opportunities comparatively to how many great performances he's had. It's not like he's bad in those, it's just that he's very streaky. But in my opinion, when we get to tier one is when it gets interesting, because that's when we start talking about like the GOATs of modern right now basketball. And I believe that we have to talk about three: Giannis, Steph, and Jokic, right? Like Giannis Antetokounmpo, it's purely because of what he's done in the past. He has many seasons, including this season, where he's All NBA first team, of an All-Star starter, and he always finds a way to have consistently phenomenal statistical seasons and everything. He has 2 MVPs, a Defensive Player of the Year, and he has a championship with the Finals MVP where he dropped a 50 bomb to win the Finals. And that was insane, right? So we have Giannis, who is incredible and in my opinion has an argument to be the best player in the world because he plays defense and offense, and you have to appreciate a guy who does that, and you have to honor him because of it. But then you have Jokic, who also has 2 MVPs, but is in the finals right now and has been consistently a phenomenal player, is a great passer, a great player, extremely smart, can actually play defense in the right sets, but he can actually play defense, right? Like this year, Denver hasn't been getting abused. And in my opinion, you have to look at him because of his versatility, his consistency, and the way that he can carry a team and consistently come up in the big moments. And finally, we have Steph, who, yes, even though he's getting old, his skill is still there, and he won a championship last year as the best player, and this year he was extremely clutch, even though his team did not want to support. In my opinion, when we talk about the best player in the world, it was Giannis for a few seasons, it was Steph for a few seasons before, right? And I mean, that's debatable, but I think Steph did have a few seasons. But when we really talk about the best player right now, I think we have to give it to Jokic or Giannis. Those are the two guys. They've gotten there, and they've showed us that they can do it, right? Like, yes, Jokic hasn't won the championship, but when we see these two dudes, they are the faces of the league. They are the clutchest players. And even though Giannis got embarrassed this year, in my opinion, he still is one of the best players in the game. I believe that this season has proven to us that Jokic is phenomenal, that he's awesome, and that he's going to continue to be one of the best players in the league. And if he keeps going with this trajectory, then he is going very far. when it comes to the best player, I think it's a tie between Nikola Jokic and Giannis Antetokounmpo, and I think that the seasons, even with the mishaps that they've had, both of them, like losing 4-1 to the Warriors last year for Jokic, and what happened with Miami this year for Giannis, I believe that these two players have really showed us NBA greatness, modern NBA greatness.